Hi, this is Mark Arnold with another edition of Fun Ideas Podcast. And today we have a returning guest to talk about Plop, as you can see behind my head. And here he is, Dave Manak, rising from the grave.
Howdy. Hey, Mark. How are you?
Great. We said it before we started, but Happy New Year
Yep.
2025. This is
Same to
my
you, man.
first podcast of the year and hopefully many
Wow.
more. Yeah.
I'm honored.
This probably won't go up for a few weeks, but still, you know.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
And
great.
today, to just say it, that it really is. Oops, that went away. It is a Ducks game at the Rose Bowl in about a couple hours. So,
Oh, are
um,
you?
Oregon Ducks.
Oh, okay.
Not an Ohio fan. No, I don't know. It's just I'm gonna watch it, but it's in a
Was
couple
this
hours.
was this that movie like the Mighty Ducks? Is that the same
No,
Ducks
no,
or?
no, no. Uh, but it is
I,
involved with Disney. The Oregon Duck is Donald Duck, the real
oh,
Donald
okay.
Duck,
Oh, I didn't know.
and
I didn't know. Yeah.
and Walt himself gave permission years ago, I mean decades ago.
Oh,
And
okay.
then when Michael Eisner took over, he was looking at everything and he says, is there an agreement for this? And it turned out it was just some sort of handshake deal.
Yeah, right.
University of Oregon contacted Disney, and Walt said, "Hey, sounds good. Have Donald Duck as the mascot." And
Mhm.
so it was never formalized until Eisner took over, and blah blah blah. And now they've tried to kind of get away from the Disney version because they have to pay licensing fees and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
right. Yeah.
so on here is like a more generic looking duck. It doesn't look quite like Donald, but anyway, there we go.
Now we know. Okay.
That's our history on this. All right, that wraps it up. All right, thank you very much. Okay, I did the show.
It's been a
Um,
great interview. Thank you.
so Dave, I think the last time we spoke, we did an audio interview. So this is the first time on camera with me. So good to see you here.
I
Um,
finally got my nerve up to get it go into Zoom. So,
and at the time, we were talking about your work at Crazy Magazine, and we did
yeah,
talk about Mad, of course, and we could talk about those things again. But
sure.
Mark Slade and I are working on a new book about another thing you worked on, which was Plop. So, I
I have to,
guess.
Mark.
Go.
I have to apologize to Mark Slade. I'm pretty sure he contacted me and like wanted to ask me some questions about Plop
Yeah.
and about my single panel cartoons in that. And I was just kind of like, I was kind of nonplussed. I didn't know what to say to him, and I didn't hope he didn't feel I was like, pushing him off. But
Hmm.
I really, honestly, I didn't know because single panel cartoons there's no rhyme or reason to them. And I just pop in your head and that's it. And I can't. There's no way to like conjure them up unless you have a running feature and you use the same characters all the time.
Hmm.
So anyway, my apologies to
Okay.
Mark.
And I did invite him to be here today, but he had other plans. So
No, okay,
he did give me a couple questions, which I
sure,
will ask
yeah,
too.
anything.
Nothing specific about individual cartoons. So I don't know if he
Hmm.
sent you some examples or is just asking a broad overview of the plops,
Yeah, he
that
was.
were, you
Yeah,
know,
when he was in contact with me, he just said he didn't get specific. Yeah,
okay. Um, because, I've done occasional gag cartoons myself, so I know how it
okay.
is. You just
Hmm.
come up with an idea, it can come up anywhere. You could be eating cereal. Hey, that's funny. Write it down, turn it in, and there you go. And then you forget
Yeah,
about it, and a year later it's published and you go, "Oh yeah, that was pretty good." And where's my check? Anyway, so
it's in the
um
mail.
yes. So, I think, refresh our memories since the last show. Um, I don't remember, but I think it was correct. Is you were that DC was your first
Well,
professional work?
yeah, it was. I'd sold some single panel cartoons to magazines. To True Magazine, one to Penthouse, and just like a small handful because right when I was coming into it, that's when the magazines were kind of getting out of it. And so I used to make the rounds. I sent a ton of them to the New Yorker and all that. Of course, no, didn't get in that, but it's just like it was going the other way, the way of it was going extinct with single panels. So then I loved comic books. I loved Joe Kubert's work, and I was uh, I was 19, and I had and just out of the blue. I mean, this was no. I didn't. There was no formula for this. I just did some very very rough superhero drawings up and sent them in to Joe Kubert at DC out of the
Hmm.
blue. So to my surprise, I got a call back from them and saying, "Would you like to come up and meet Joe?" And I was kind of like, I went into to another you know state of mind. But anyway, yeah, I called him back and I was great. And for about a year, I would come up and go up to see Joe one day a month. He would give me old war scripts, a few pages. He said, just redraw these, don't copy anything, just redraw them. So I was doing that for about a year and I was going, it was going pretty well. But then I showed him some of my cartooning work too. And and he thought that was pretty good. And he said, you're doing well with the things I'm giving you, but I said, I want to introduce you to somebody. And he took me over to Joe Orlando's office. And Joe was editing the mystery comics at the time. And so I'm not sure if he had started Plop yet. I don't know the exact year that came out. This was I was doing this like in 70, 71
Okay, that was that was pre-plop.
with Joe Kubert, yeah. And
Yep.
then Joe liked my stuff and he said, just keep doing this type of thing. And but then I needed some work. I told DC office I was going to move to New York. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to stay, but I found a place to stay with my cousin.
Hmm.
He had a rent controlled apartment at that time, and that worked out real well for me.
Hmm.
But so I needed some work, and they were talking about it was just at that time. Um, they were doing. I was retouching old comics. They didn't have the technology they had today, like digital, where they could take all the color out and just leave the black lines.
Hmm.
So what they do, they would shoot it in black and white, in a high contrast black and white, but there was still some gray tones in it.
Hmm.
And so I just had to. I was go in and white out the gray tones and strengthen the black lines, and they were going to reprint it. These are the old classics. The first one I worked with, I don't know if it's the first one I worked on. It might have been but I did the re-release of the Superman comic where Superman's holding up the green car.
No.
And that was like they didn't have that was me. I did that first one, and I think they reproduced it in a bigger version of it.
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't get it, but so that's what I was doing. I was retouching, and I was really good at it. They liked it, and then Joe started Plop, and I went over, kept talking to him, and I finally started doing Plop.
Hmm. Now, was
Gradually.
that the first thing you did at DC is published, or because I know Plop, to give you a little history,
Yeah,
the House of Mystery had been around since like 1951 or something like
yeah,
that.
right,
And then Joe Orlando got the opportunity to revamp the title in '68, and that's when it became the version with Cain, Abel, and Eve
right, yeah,
over time, that
right.
eventually begot Plop.
Hmm.
Did you do any of the like gag cartoons in House of Mystery or something prior to being in Plop, or was Plop your first thing?
Yeah, Plop was the first thing. I would think it was like number 7,
Yeah.
where it was the one where there's the zookeeper,
Hmm.
and he's like the a gorilla has him by the holding him and peeling his foot like a banana, and he's yelling, "Hey, bring some bananas, quick!" So that was that was as far as I can remember, that's the first thing I ever got published at DC, and I was just doing it more and more single panels, and Joe would he'd go over them, and then he wanted me to try some stories, and like at that time I had previously mentioned I was a big fan of Charles Rodriguez. He did a lot of work for Lampoon, and he did a lot of single panel cartoons, and I just liked his rough style and his like very like dark wit, and among other single panel cartoonists. But that's I kind of like got that style from him, and some from Sergio Aragonis. I mean, I didn't
Hmm.
really try to copy Sergio at all,
Yeah.
but so that's basically how that style came out. It was like I I'm not quite sure what the first one was that I did. It might have been the Andrew Klutz and the Lion. It might have been that one, um, or whatever it was. So, but
Well, I can go through which ones. Actually, your first issue was number six, but you had like
Oh,
just a simple gag cartoon.
yeah,
There was
right. Yeah, yeah.
no longer
What's the
stories in
first
that.
story? What's the first
The
story? Do you
the
know?
first story was in number seven, and I have it as switch ending, but I don't remember
Oh, okay.
exactly what that story was about. Without looking it up, I should know these
That was
by heart, but
I'm pretty sure that was about an undertaker.
yeah. Oh,
And
that's right. Yeah, and I'll give it
and
away. Sorry, that's where they switch the heads. Yes.
yeah, right.
Sorry if you haven't read it, folks, but you should be reading your plops.
Well,
Anyway.
they have to buy go online and buy them, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Now that particular one, let me see. Seven. I'm trying. I had it right in front of me, and then now it's gone. Um, Switch Ending was written by Jack Olek. So, were you allowed to write your own longer stories at first, or is it just like, here, illustrate this? How did that work?
Here's how that worked. And I don't, whenever there's not a I don't know whether that's I don't know if it's a straight Jack Olick story because Joe and I he used to take old inventory mystery comics because they just had a ton of inventory. And we used to like sit down and go through them and make so we would change the story and put gags in the story. And that's basically how that probably came about, that switch ending. Although that seems like a pretty straight mystery type type story also.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I think Joe would come in. We rewrite them, and I mean sometimes we rewrite the whole thing. And whenever there's a name on there that you don't recognize, that's means Joe did it or Joe and I did
Okay.
it.
Um, let's see. In the next issue, you had Vampire at the Circus, and that one was written, it says, with Don Edwing, who's also famous and Mad, and you
Well,
worked
I'll
with
tell
him.
you that's how the Edwing things came about. Edwing was like he was really prolific. I mean,
Oh
he
yeah.
they came out of his butt. That's how honest to God. And he they were basically rejects from Mad, the ones that he brought over, to Joe because he knew Joe from Mad,
Mm-hmm.
and he would sell them to Joe, and I did a lot of Edwing gags, and
Hmm.
that was that was a single page, I believe, yeah,
Yeah.
single page,
Hmm. Then the next one, I'm not going through, you had plops in each issue. There's like gourmet plops, historical
right,
plops.
yeah,
Did you have anything to do with like those titles, or you just turned in cartoons? How
yeah.
did you approach
I didn't have
your individual gags?
I didn't have anything to do with the titles, but
Hmm.
um, if 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 another um, writer is not credited, I wrote them
Hmm.
too. So I wrote the single page ones. So
Okay. But were you assigned, oh, we need a bunch of, like, there's gourmet plops. We need a lot of plops about food or something like that. Were you told that, or did you just come up with stuff and, hey, that looks like we could make a new subject instead of just monster
it
plops?
really it could have been either way. I really don't remember. But I
Okay.
mean, if they said it was probably they were coming up with the title based on the gag. I mean, that's my guess.
Hmm. Because it seemed like they came up, like one of them, like we're jumping ahead, but in issue 15 was the first fowl plops,
Yeah, right.
and I guess you probably turned in some stories about birds and they go, hey, let's make fowl plops instead of
Exactly. I mean,
something else.
there may have been an existing title, and they said they want something, like some gags for that,
Yeah,
and so that probably came up. But yeah, I think there were a lot of times they were just making up a new
right.
type of plop, depending on the gag.
Right. But the one that was used often was like people plops was used a lot,
Right.
historical plops was used a lot,
Right.
monster plops, but that's obvious.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Let's see. The next one I got is in issue 11, which I have other questions about that particular issue, but you had a story called Fisherman's Wife. And
Oh,
that one you actually got credited as writing and drawing yourself. So,
is that a single page?
if memory serves, I think it might have been a couple more pages. If you have the issue, it's number 11. So,
Let me see here. Let me go through my books.
okay.
I,
It's a red cover
uh,
if that helps. Actually, it's behind my head right there.
which one is it?
The red one right behind my shoulder there.
I don't know if I have that one.
Oh, okay.
I have most of them, but
Okay. I mean, if you don't know about that story off the top of your head, that's fine. But I do have a question about that particular issue, and there's no one else
wait,
to ask, so you might be the one to ask. That's it. Yeah, that looks like it. Yep, yep.
see if I can remember.
Yeah, the fisherman's wife.
The Fisherman's Wish.
Oh, did I say? Oh, wish. Yes, I wrote down wife over here.
Yeah, it's actually it's this one.
Oh, I
I
can't see that. There we go.
I don't know
I
how
see
to do
the.
this.
I see the other side.
I'm
Yeah,
disappearing.
lower is better. So yeah, but it shows the Zinger's side. Okay,
Well, what's happening
is it a
is,
single page then after all?
yeah, there's a fisherman. He's in his boat.
Hmm.
A bottle comes by. He takes the cork out, and the smoke comes out, and a genie appears. And he says to the genie, he indicates to the genie he wants a big fish. That's all it is. He goes plop, and the genie turns him into a fish.
Okay, so that's what it is. And if I wrote wish, I probably would have remembered it better. Since I put the wife, I was saying
That's what I mean. That's why I
the
asked you if it was a single panel because that's the only one I remember with being a fisherman one. But
right. Okay.
okay,
So, any memories on that now that you've seen it again, or is it just something else that you just turned in?
it's just something I came up with. It just wasn't anything, you know, was they didn't ask for it or anything. Just
Hmm.
I would submit them, and if they liked them, if they laughed, then it was good.
Hmm. Now, like I said, House of Mystery and House of Secrets and some of the other titles were also running one-page gags. Did you get told in advance, oh, this is going to go in House of Mystery, blah, blah, or this one's going into Plop, or you just
Well,
turned in stuff?
I knew they needed filler pages like that, and just about every one.
Right.
And so I would come up with that theme, the gag with that theme for that book. And one was ghosts, so I tried to do a ghost theme.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, it was all like just. I mean, some of them were just general, like mystery gags or like magic and stuff like that. So when I was doing later, I was also doing single page gags for the war comics too.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
they
that.
just needed. I mean, they just needed filler pages, and that's I was lucky enough that they needed humor filler pages.
Hmm.
So that was fun.
Now, did those kind of end by you leaving, or was it just because the titles kind of got canceled and that was kind of the end
Yeah,
of that? Because they don't do
my
kind of single page gags as filler anymore, it seems like.
well, they should.
Yeah, I know. But
um, the were you talking about the mystery books or just the gags?
well, the gag pages in general. I mean, it could be for Sergeant Rock or whatever, It's like none of these titles that they have nowadays do they have any sort of, comedy relief gag page just to kind of break up the action of the full stories or anything like that.
Yeah, they just. I mean, I guess it was because of the nature of the page, numbers of the stories. They just needed something to fill in or not fill in. They had the letters page, and they
Hmm.
had some other, guest artist page or something like that. And
Hmm.
I mean, the 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 single page, gags were fun.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, did
um,
they end because you moved on to say Mad or anything, or is it just because they just kind of they were still going, but you weren't doing them anymore?
well,
Do you remember?
basically, they kind of ended. Um, when I went on staff as editor, like in '81, I wasn't doing them. I had the mystery books,
Oh,
and
okay.
I wasn't doing them. I don't know why. There was nobody else was. Well, actually, other people did submit things, and I don't remember buying any single page ones when I was editor of them. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where men are mystery in
Yeah.
the house of mystery.
Because it did get kind of phased out, I noticed. And I don't
Yeah,
know if it's because there was a lesser page count because of more advertising or what, it's like,
I don't know. I just I don't I don't remember doing any when I was editor. So I don't know what happened, why they stopped it, whether they just weren't going to do them anymore or what. I don't know why.
okay.
Because
When,
I wasn't I was too busy to be doing them. I didn't need to do them at that point.
Right. And so you were editor of House of Mystery near the end
Yeah.
then? Okay. So you
Well,
were
I didn't.
doing
I left after a year actually of editing those because they were on their way out anyway. And then
okay.
another editor got the tail end of them to
Okay.
and
So so were you doing I, Vampire, or was that somebody else?
no, that was like after
Okay.
me, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a very tail end. Yeah, they
Yeah.
and that's when I lost interest in the title. I liked it better when it was like a revolving thing rather than a
Yeah.
single character. I mean, I have no
Right. Yeah.
problem with vampire stories, but every issue, come on. You know,
Mhm.
anyway, but that I'm not blaming you. So
I
um,
didn't, that wasn't my creation. So it's,
yeah, yeah. So that issue 11 that I had you hold up briefly, a Plop, that was the first issue with advertising, and it was also the first monthly issue.
oh, that's right. I forgot all about that, about the advertising.
So I can't ask Joe Orlando. I can't ask anybody else. Sergio didn't really seem to remember because I did talk to him.
Yeah.
Um, do you remember? If you don't, that's fine. Do you remember if there's a major discussion about bringing in advertising or going monthly or anything about the format change?
The only thing I remember the hearing about the advertising, now that you mentioned, is that because the sales weren't great and they just needed, if they wanted to keep it afloat, they had to like, bring in, do some advertising in it. So
Okay.
that was about it. That's what I remember anyway.
Okay. And that makes sense. I was just wondering if uh like powers that be, you say, "Hey, we Plop is doing great." Apparently, it wasn't, but
Yeah, right.
let's make it a monthly title. Well, if you want to do it monthly, we really have to justify it with advertising. It wasn't like
It
that?
was it was about the sales. It just kind of run its course, because
Okay,
Joe wasn't editing at the end. Paul Levitz took it over.
okay.
So that's you know it was just like something that had its day.
hmm Now, do you know anything about the initial reason for not having advertising? I know you could probably say it's being like mad, but I mean, most floppy 20-cent comics weren't advertising free. I mean, the only other one I can think of, and that was a few years away, was Spidey Super Stories over at Marvel.
I mean,
Um,
I don't know why they originally. I guess it was to be more like Mad.
yeah.
One of the things I do know that Matt, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Mad forbade Joe because they were both owned by Warner, and Mad was a big moneymaker at that time, and they Mad forbade Joe to do like movie satires
Mm,
and TV satires. He couldn't because it would be too much of a competition. And
mm,
I mean, I was really getting into doing caricatures too. I like them, like doing caricatures, and I would have loved doing that.
hmm
So I could do like some like cartoony caricatures of people now and then, but uh, that was one of the big things that Joe couldn't do. It probably would have helped a lot,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that was the only reason that's I guess it was a kind of like you know DC was kind of financing it, if it without the advertising. I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't have cared if they had advertising from the beginning, but
Right.
you know,
Yeah. It's just kind of a shock when you're reading it and
yeah,
hey, no ads, and then suddenly ads, but then it was monthly at that point. So you go,
yeah,
well, at least I get more issues. You
yeah.
know.
It
Yeah.
was a money it was a money thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying from a fan's point of view,
Oh
I
yeah,
think
no, I
that
agree. I
yeah,
agree. I mean,
yeah.
I was Plop's biggest fan.
Yeah. Um, I'm surprised though, but this might just be because of, again, economics or whatever, that no more mad people weren't poached. I mean, you worked at Mad later, but I mean, as
Yeah.
far as I could tell, Sergio and Basil were like the only real mad guys. Everything else was ad magazine cartoonists and other people that were
You're
already on
right.
the other
Well,
mystery titles, like Bernie Wrightson or something.
I guess it was like just because Wolverton really wasn't doing anything for Matt at that point, was he?
On rare occasion, yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah,
right.
it's
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah,
it
rarely,
had
yeah.
been quite a while, yeah.
So this was kind of like a breath of fresh air for him doing these.
Yeah.
And I loved him. I loved it. That was great to have him on that.
hmm
And I think Sergio, I mean, he was just so like fast. I mean, he was just like just pouring out of him, and he was just able to do it. He was good friends with Joe.
Yeah. Okay.
And he liked doing the plop stuff. So
Right.
it was great. And I got to meet Sergio a lot during those days when he was in town.
Mhm.
And it's that was great. That was a great thrill. I even met Wally Wood. He was in Joe's office. I didn't know Wally before that. I had never met him, and I had, Joe had told me briefly about how he was Wally's assistant when he first started starting out,
Mhm.
and then Wally had gone through some rough times, and but I was in his office, and I came in, and Joe introduced me to him, and it's like I didn't know as much about Wally Wood then as I did now. This is like like in the '70s,
Mhm.
and but looking back on it, that was a big thrill,
Mhm.
because I knew how close he was with Joe, and also um, during my Plop time, I got to know Wally Wood's ex-wife, Tatiana Wood,
Mhm.
and she would always call him Wallace. She was like a European. She had a very kind of cute European accent,
Mhm.
but she got to know me. She colored. She was a colorist, and she colored a lot of my Plop stuff. And she said she said uh, I don't know if she called me Dave or Manak. I mean, around the office, everybody was called by their last name,
Mm.
because if there's more than one Bob there or more than one Dave, you don't know who they're talking about. So everybody called everybody by their last name. And um, so but I would talk to her a lot. We'd meet out in the outside the offices in the like bullpen area, have a smoke and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And she said, she said, I like the fingers that you do it. They look like banana fingers. They're doing these like real thick fingers. They call them banana fingers. But she was really nice. She was really very
Mhm.
nice. And she always spoke affectionately of Wally. She called him Wallace.
Mhm.
And yeah, Joe knew her really well too from that time that he worked with Wally.
Mhm.
So that's just an
Mhm.
aside there.
Now, you may or may not know this, but it's like we interviewed Monty Wolverton,
Yeah,
Basil's son,
yeah,
and Basil did say that the plop covers that Basil turned in were the last things he did before he had a stroke. So,
right.
Wally Wood did come in shortly after.
Yeah.
Were you aware of that or paying attention to that when all that happened? Was there any major discussion, or is it just, oh, Wally Wood's going to do the covers now?
I didn't know that Basil even had a stroke. I didn't know
Okay.
why he had stopped doing them. He did a lot of them, and
Hmm.
I mean, I was happy to see Wally's work. I mean, that he was working on that,
Hmm.
and that he was able to work at that point yet. But that's the only thing I know about that. Now,
Yeah.
I never met Basil's son either.
Yeah, yeah. Monty's still around. Yeah, he lives in Washington State. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, he was going to travel to some show or something that we interviewed him a few months ago in
Is
Toronto.
is he
So
working? Is he
yeah,
doing any work?
he still does some work here and
Oh,
there. Yeah. And he was editor and worked on the Plain Truth uh, Christian magazine for a number of years, and Christian
okay.
News magazine, if you're aware of that.
No, I'm not.
And yeah, but he did other things. He also worked for Mad for a while too. But I don't remember if it was overlapping your years doing Spy versus Spy or not. But I know everybody works out of their own homes and everything like
Right.
that. So
Well,
now,
at that point, yeah, when I was doing the spy years, I was living in Pennsylvania, so I
oh,
didn't
okay.
even get into the office that much. So
And where are you now?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Oh, you're still in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm I don't know if anybody knows where Reading, Pennsylvania is,
I've heard of it.
or
Yeah.
King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, but I'm right in the middle of those. So
Well,
halfway between.
isn't that the Reading Railroad that ends up in Monopoly that goes to Atlantic
Yes, it
City?
is.
Yeah, see.
Yep.
And everybody says
That's
reading Railroad if they don't know. Yeah.
that's right.
And
Reading.
yep.
That's where Jim Steranko lives. Reading.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Do
pretty
you
sure.
have you ever met up with him or
No,
no? Oh, wow.
I'd like to. I mean,
Yeah.
but I just saw somewhere there was a thing recently. It was dinner with Steranko
Yeah.
somewhere,
Yeah.
and so, I forget. There was a comment saying, "Is that's what we get? Just dinner with him?" You don't get to talk to
Yeah.
him. Anyway, that was kind of funny.
Actually, I did have dinner with him about
Oh yeah.
10 years ago.
Wow.
A friend of mine named Lee Hester who ran a comic store. He still runs it, but it's online now called Lee's Comics.
Uh-huh.
Um, he got him to do a signing at the store decades ago, and they just remained friends. And so it's somewhere along the line, he was going to be in the San Francisco Bay Area, and so he called up Lee and he says, "Hey, I'm going to be in the Bay Area. You want to go out to dinner?" And so then Lee brought his wife, and I just happened to be available at the last minute. He says, "Mark, do you want to come meet Jim Steranko?" Oh no, so no, yes, I'll come. So I got ready and showed up, and it was the four of us. We went to a nice dinner,
Yeah.
um, and I've tried to get him on this podcast, and I no offense to Steranko himself, but he says he turns down all podcasts because he
Hmm.
says, if I do yours, I'll have to do everybody's, and I go, I respect that. Okay.
Well, see, that's my
Yeah.
problem now. I've had other requests, to do them. I just wasn't like, in the groove.
Yeah.
But now
In
that I
his
have my,
case, he's in demand, and he says, no, no,
yeah,
no, because I don't know everything he's working on now, but he still works on things. And so, it just takes
yeah.
a lot of his time. And he still does shows and stuff like that on occasion. So,
Well, I remember when I first saw his work. I mean, it was so
excuse me.
dynamic. It was so great,
Hmm.
and then I don't know what after he did Nick Fury was one of the first ones, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what did he do after that? You know?
Well, he worked on X-Men for a bit. He redesigned
Okay.
logos, like the newer X-Men logo that everybody knows, not the jaggedy one, the
Right.
original one, the
Right.
one that's kind of more dynamic, like a
Yeah.
Superman logo. That was his. Occasionally he'll do a cover, like in most recent times. I think he did Batman cover in the last few years and things like that. So he'll
Here's
do a cover, not full stories anymore. So
here's something a question somebody asked me that I didn't know. It's like we mentioned Bernie Wrightson because he started working in Plop.
right.
Is Bernie working today or?
No, he passed away a few years ago.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah,
that. I'm sorry to
yeah,
hear that.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
The last I knew, um, I don't know if you remember this publication, because it was very short-lived. So if you don't, no problem.
Yeah,
Called Web of Horror. Um,
it may have come across me.
yeah,
I'm not sure.
it was published by the same people who did Cracked magazine,
Oh,
and
okay.
and it was their attempt to kind of break into the creepy, eerie Warren magazine type vein
Right.
and stuff like that. And
Right.
this is about 68, 69, about the same time you're starting out as DC.
Yeah.
And Bernie Wrightson and Mike Kaluta and a few others, they
Mhm.
were some of the people that worked on those books, and that
Uh-huh.
was pre-DC, pre-Swamp Thing, pre-everything. And it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
um, so. Fortunately, there is a compilation book that just came out. It was years in the making. And
Uh-huh.
fortunately, the person was Dana Marie Andra, who has been on this show too. Got to talk to Wrightson before he passed and
Hmm.
get like unpublished stories and things
Right.
like that, and kind of his seal of approval and everything
That's.
like that.
I mean,
So,
he's somebody I never met either. I mean, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, I never met him either. Yeah, so
I mean, I don't know if he was living in New York when he was doing Plop or not, but we never crossed paths.
mm. So
Because
you
I
never
was in
had
DC.
like a plop party or like
No.
that for all the
Oh,
creators. Okay.
pretzels in the the bullpen area.
Yeah. Actually, it's kind of amazing since, you were working on many titles similarly, like House of
Hmm.
Mystery and House of Secrets and
Yeah.
all that stuff that you wouldn't have crossed paths at some point, but
I know. I know. I'm
m-
surprised. Yeah.
maybe he mailed things in. I don't know his story
Yeah.
on
I don't.
how
Yeah. I
he
don't know
worked
either.
either.
Yeah.
So,
Because
other,
I'm sure. I think. I mean, his work was so good. I'm sure if he was in the office, I mean, people would be saying, "Hey, Bernie's here," or
yeah,
whatever. And I never heard that. So
yeah. Now, when I was doing the interviews for, going back to Wood for a second, when I
yeah.
was doing the interviews for the Mad Book, I forgot who said it, but somebody said that like whenever somebody like Wally Wood would turn up, back in the days when he was a regular, they'd say Wally Wood's here, because
Yeah.
he'd
Right.
show up and
Yeah.
just drop his stuff off, and then he'd
Yeah.
get a new assignment and leave. I think it was
Yeah.
Dick DeBartolo who said that because,
Okay.
he was not one to hang around the office much. He just kind of turned in his stuff and left. But he would talk to
Right.
people if he wanted to talk to people if he was there. So
Yeah. Well, that's how I mean. He was talking. He was in Joe's office, and I was working. so closely with Joe at that point. So I was just like, I certainly knew of Wally's work, and I knew he was doing some things for Plop at that point. And so that was a kind of a big thrill for me to meet him.
Hmm.
It's just a really kind of a quick, hi, how are you? And really like, I admire your work and all that. And
Was he good spirits at that point?
I remember he didn't look. I've seen some photos of him like when he was like, before he passed, and he didn't look so good.
Yeah.
And like he was younger too. It wasn't that old,
Yeah.
and he didn't look that bad in Joe's office. So I mean, it must have been before like things got worse for him.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Because I'm always curious about that too,
yeah, I
because
mean,
he
I
he,
think
he
of him.
had his ups and downs. I think,
Yeah,
and even prior to leaving Mad, which is part of the reason he left Mad, drinking
yeah,
problems and things like that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know,
Well, Joe had, after when I one day I went into Joe's office and I could see Joe was like kind of shaken up, and I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Wally passed away,"
Mm,
and I know I read how he did it, how he passed, right? But
right.
I didn't know at that point what had happened, and I said to Joe, I said, "Well, what happened? How did he die?" He said, "Well, he drank himself to death."
Mm,
So it was kind of like that kind of thing. That's what the precursor to that was. It's sad. It happens a lot of times, when with creative people and and artists and writers and
yeah.
just
He just couldn't get the migraines to go away. Nowadays there
yeah,
might be
no,
medications for it, but
yeah,
back then nothing.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, no, I agree with you. But there were us old dogs that's still hanging around. So.
Uh,
I'm here. I'm here for the long run. I have
yeah.
two young grandchildren, so
Yay. Mhm. All right. Let's see. Going back to Plop. So it looks like the next few issues, you didn't have any real specific, it was just gags for the few issues. And then the next one is issue 18. You had a story called Along Come the Elves. So it's probably an elves and a shoemaker type story, if I remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember that one. That was a fun one to do.
And let's see if
It always
it's.
reminded me of the. I was a big um, like Rocky and Bullwinkle fan when I was growing up. When I was a Cub Scout, I used to like devour that. And the Fractured Fairy Tales
Oh,
was,
yeah.
and it made me think of the elves and the shoemaker. And he
Mhm.
said, "How can I make great shoes? You gotta suffer. You gotta travel." so, so all that, but that's kind of like made me think of that story with the elves that I did. But yeah, it was yeah, I remember that story. Sure.
Yeah. And that was it shows written by Steve Skeets and Ed Newsom. Do you have any comments about them?
I knew Steve like fairly well, and I mean, from meeting him in the office, I went out to lunch with him a few times. I liked Steve a lot. He was like a kind of he seemed a little like weird, but I mean, I liked him. But cartoonist what cartoonist isn't a little weird.
Yeah.
But his writing was very good. I liked his writing a lot, and he was he was a character, and I like Steve a lot. I didn't know the other person.
Okay. Okay. Not sure either. Yeah. But Skeets, yeah, did a lot of work for Plop and also Crazy and a few other
I
things.
think I think from what I remember, his name they pronounce his name Skates.
Skates, probably.
I think so. No, I'm just saying
Yeah,
that's what
that's probably true. It's like
Yeah.
I hate to say it. It's like when I've never met somebody. Like I
Oh no.
always and I said we discussed this last time. I
Mhm.
always called your name Manak.
Yeah.
For
Right.
whatever. And it's like no, it's Manak. Oh,
Well,
okay.
we just like I mean, look
Yeah,
at things and we do them phonetically, and
yeah,
how it's commonly done,
yeah.
So
I got corrected on Basil Wolverton too because Monty said no, it was Basil, and the only reason I said Basil Wolverton is because you watch Faulty Towers and it was
yeah.
Basil
Right.
Faulty, and she'd always go Basil, the wife,
I
So I
I
figured,
always
well,
thought
it's Basil,
yeah.
but it's
I always
Basil,
thought it
so
was I always thought it was Basil also. I didn't know it was
yeah,
Basil.
yeah,
So
no, he'll correct you if you
well, I
if you
guess so.
did, so now we know, but so it's
Yeah.
Basil like
Mhm.
the spice, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, um. Let's see, going on. The next issue 19 had a bug in the works, and that was also a Steve Skates story. I don't know if you have any memories of that one.
What was it?
19. That one also has a wood cover. It's a reddish cover of like this monster smoking a pipe on the cover.
Red
Yeah.
covers.
I know the covers more than the issues themselves.
Well, that's all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I know I've read all these stories countless times, but I know the stories more than the titles, and well, that's a question for you. Did you come up with titles for your stories as well, or did you just come up with a story idea, or both?
Um, Basically, I mean, I didn't have a lot to do with the writing. I had suggestions of things,
Hmm.
but when I wrote the whole story, when I never wrote any full, whole plot story. I mean, I
Hmm.
would come up with the title then. So they were pretty much the titles were there. It's not that, I mean, Joe and I could have changed the title too from the original, before
Hmm.
they could. Now here's the one you just mentioned.
Okay.
And
Um,
also I have to there's a there's a people plops in there that my friend Dave Michelini wrote.
oh,
We're
okay.
good buddies at that time. And it's a guy with like his skin is broken all out. It's a single page guy.
Hmm.
And he walks by the doorman. The doorman starts breaking out immediately, plop, 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 with all these like pimples on him.
Yeah.
Goes by, gives money to a homeless guy in the street. He breaks out. He passes this guy, passes that guy, passes this guy, and he goes into a doctor's office and says, "Now tell me, Mister DeWitt, just what makes you think your rash is contagious?" And the doctor's all broken out. And so that's Steve wrote that. I mean, Dave
Hmm.
McElhinney wrote that.
Yeah.
Now the other one is
It's called Bug in the
oh
Works.
yeah, it's about cockroaches, and this is like I don't know how to show
You kind of
images.
have to show it for your shirt below if you don't want it to go away. Yeah. Um, and then we can all zoom in. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
See that character on the bottom?
Yeah.
That's a caricature of me.
Okay.
I
Not the
I put
cockroach,
my
right?
put myself in there.
Okay.
So
Did you
so
have a
yeah, that's
cockroach problem?
no, I didn't, and
Oh,
I found a solution to it. I mean, when I had a cat, and which I became allergic to, I had to get rid of her.
oh.
But or I gave her to a friend of mine. I didn't get rid of her. Not a plop story.
Plop. Cat plops.
But I mean, you'd leave cat food out, and it was like it attracted roaches.
Uh-huh.
I when I and this may seem strange, but I didn't have any roaches in my apartment. I mean,
Hmm.
they'd come up to me. I never saw them because what I would do, any kind of wet um, trash I would have, like from cooking or anything like that,
Hmm.
bag and throw it in the bottom of my refrigerator until I was going to throw it out. So there was nothing in the garbage can that would attract them. It was only paper products. And honest to God, there were no cockroaches in my apartment, which is like, unbelievable for New York. So anyway, that's what
That's probably
happened.
the solution for it, but
Because
I it,
those little buggers are horrid.
yeah. Well,
It's like a
I'm currently rereading the Freak Brothers. You've probably seen those. And of
yeah,
course there's stories with Fat Freddy's cat, and then the cockroaches,
yeah,
the
right, yeah,
cockroaches taking over the house and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
but they left things out. So there you go. You solved that mystery. Fat Freddy just put the garbage away. Anyway.
yeah, right, exactly.
Let's see. This one I actually remember well. So you can pull it out if you want to. Is issue 20, Meet His Maker. And this one seems like a total Tales from the Crypt story where the meat patties start resembling the guy's head. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
well. That was Joe and I worked on that story together. I remember that. And it was Noxon was his name, which is backwards for Nixon.
Oh.
And I kind of did a caricature of Nixon
Hmm.
on that guy, and a cartoony character of him. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I remember that real well. That was funny, fun story.
Hmm.
So yeah, we rewrote the whole thing from a.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that one's credited to Maxine Fabe. Is that how you pronounce it?
Well, that's because
It's
we
the
rewrote it.
rewritten one. Okay, got
Yeah,
it. Okay, so now it makes sense. And
Joe.
this is something that's probably a revelation to my co-author Mark Slade is we see all these classic comic book writers writing for Plop that hadn't
Mhm.
written for 20, 30 years. How did that happen? Oh, you're just using their stories and crediting them again. Okay, got it. Okay.
Right, yeah. you
simple.
know.
But, as a kid, you don't know this. You think they're just still working and churning out
Yeah,
new
well,
stories,
yeah, it was news to me. It was when
Yeah.
started doing it with Joe. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. He was the king of recycling, but actually it was a good thing to do,
yeah.
if you know. Next issue 21. There again was a format change before we talk about your stories where, it was this when Plop kind of was losing steam completely and it was going to go away. It became a giant and bi-monthly again. So it was like 52 pages as opposed to standard 36 or whatever. And
It's
I th
23. What was on the cover of that?
21, it was three panels. I think Orlando did the cover himself, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
Joe. Yeah, I have it
Yeah,
right here. Yeah, Joe did
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. And which is kind of a strange thing too. I mean, to stop using Wolverton or Wood art on the covers in favor of, these gags. I don't know if that was just every were there any complaints or he just decided to go to a new direction?
I think he just wanted to do some variety. That's all, and it
Okay.
gave him a chance to do some art too. I
Okay.
mean, because he wasn't doing much art at that time,
Hmm.
and so that's what it was. But it was like I said, we kind of knew that was like on its way out. I have a story in there. It's like
Yeah, it's the
rise and fall of Stanley Steamer.
yeah.
That was fun.
Now that one says David Verne is the writer. Is who's that? Or do you know? No. Okay.
That's one of Joe's names,
Ah, okay.
his pseudonyms. Yeah, if you don't
Okay.
recognize who it is, I mean, it could be something that somebody just bought as a one-off, from a writer,
True.
or it's like, but it's most likely it was like we just rewrote this.
Hmm.
So
Any memories on that particular story since you're thumbing through it?
I'm just like looking at it. I remember doing it. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, nothing unusual about it. Just like
Okay.
trying to make things funny.
Yeah. And then the last three issues, 22, 23, and 24, they're also giants, but you actually did the covers of all those. I mean, were you asked to do covers or they just slapped it on the cover? What was the story there?
Well, I'll tell you, with two of them, the um, 23 and I have the other ones here. These ones with the panels in. I mean, this one, this one, 2023.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
It
With the
was, it was, that was a single panel, that was a single page gag that Edwin had written
hmm
that we converted into a cover. Just made they did it in production. They just took panels out of that
hmm
and, made it into the cover. I had already drawn these as a single page,
mm
and then went into production. If I had to do any extensions or anything, I did. But something, and there's another one too with the King Kong on top of the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
That one, and he peels the thing back as a banana. That was also a single page, a
Yeah.
gag that Edwin had done,
Yeah, I
and
think that was 22. Yeah.
they took
That one.
that apart. I had to do some redrawing for that one, but
Hmm.
it's I don't know how there's kind of like it was like kind of like like a black wash on these, and I don't know how that happened, why they did that, because it was on this one and the King Kong one. Because if you look at the color on these pages, um, it's a different effect. I don't know if like Joe wanted to do that as just to make it as a different effect or what, but
Hmm.
it's not that it hurt anything. It just didn't.
Hmm.
It wasn't the normal bright colors of the
Mm.
just comic cover covers.
Well, were those supposed to be black and white and you
No,
had
they
Zipatone or
weren't.
shading or something on there? Or
No,
okay.
I don't know. I don't know where that tone came from. I really don't, because it
Okay.
wasn't. They weren't black and white. I drew them as just line drawings. I didn't. There was no shading or anything in it,
Hmm.
and so I don't know where that came from. Joe might have done it. I don't know. I mean, I didn't question it at the time. I didn't. It just didn't.
And then
Fine. I think I got paid for it twice, so that was okay.
yeah. I think that issue 23 had this series that Orlando did a few of them. Everybody seemed to have a stab at it called Peter Pureheart. I mean, where did that character come from?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Okay. And that was kind of like your last. hurrah as a story because everything else was like gags in these final issues that you just
Yeah,
did. So,
I think yeah they were just using up like inventory stuff and all that. So,
okay.
but yeah, it was a great experience for me. I mean, I
Mhm.
just loved working for with Joe, and my it was like my dream come true to be doing cartoons, comic books, and I didn't do original. I never thought I would be doing something like that, which came more natural to me, and
Mhm.
or naturally to me, and I was always thought I'd be doing superheroes, and I could have if I had trained myself to do it, but I was always like too distracted to really learn, anatomy and all that. So, I
Mhm.
mean, proper anatomy. Um,
Mhm.
I guess I just couldn't keep my mind on it long enough because
Now,
this was a lot faster. Yeah.
now one thing that happened, and I think, okay, is the Stanley Steamer one, is that the comic book McFiend one, or is there a different one that maybe I'm forgetting the story? But there was one that was published with that character, comic book
Yeah, I
McFiend.
remember that really well.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's one
and
of my
there was
favorites.
one that wasn't published, and it ended up in Amazing World of DC Comics in the th unlucky 13 issue that had like
What
stuff.
was that? What was in that? I don't remember what that
That
was.
other one was called The Narc is Coming, I think is what it was called. I don't know if that rings a bell, but it was another comic book McFiend story.
Oh,
And
really? Did I do it or did somebody else do
you
it?
drew it at least. I don't know if you wrote it, but yeah,
No,
but
I
it
didn't write
ended
it.
up in Amazing World of DC Comics, and I was just
Huh.
wondering, and Plop was still being published at that point. Do you know how that Amazing World series worked when they used stories? Did they just
No,
throw things over there, or what?
I really don't know I didn't even know what the Amazing World was.
Oh,
I don't,
okay.
I think they just probably gave it to them. I didn't do it for them as far as I remember, I didn't do anything for that,
Yeah, yeah.
originally. Well, Edwin wrote the comic book of McFiend
Yeah, I think he
stories.
might have written the other one too. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Because I think he liked the character. He came up with a character. Maybe he thought it was going to be like a regular book or something. I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed doing that a lot. That was a real fun story to work on.
Hmm.
So,
So
which
is it?
all these stories we're talking about, I have all the original art from those yet.
Oh, cool.
I'd like to sell them. I don't know how to do it, but
Well, I don't know.
I'll,
So
I'll
some people go through heritage auctions. I don't know if it's that valuable one way or the other,
I
but that might be a way.
I haven't done Heritage, but I'm thinking maybe that's what I'm gonna have to do. I mean, I
Hmm.
can like try on for my website, but
Hmm.
at this point, I just want like other people to have them, and
Right.
me, get some, reward for it too.
Yeah.
So
That is kind of interesting that you didn't know one of your stories would have ended up in Amazing World of DC Comics, but
no, I didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah. But yeah, there it is. In this plot book, we are going to discuss the stories that didn't make it. There is a story
Yeah,
that Sheldon Mayer did, which I forgot the title off the top of my head, that was supposed to be for Plop. It's kind of Plop-like, but the way Sheldon Mayer draws, it looks kind of like Sugar and Spike. So maybe
yeah, right.
Orlando didn't think it would look scary enough or something like that, you know. But
A lot of the mystery stories, or some of the mystery stories, were very plop like, but like we said, we converted the mystery stories into to humor ones. The one switching the heads, and the making the burgers out of the guy.
right.
So I mean, they were all mystery stories. They weren't humor.
Hmm.
So
Now, when Plop was finally canceled, I talked to Sergio about this too, and he was even caught by surprise, although he had to admit he was kind of getting really busy with other things when Plop was kind of going away. Like I don't know if
what
you
what
remember.
when was he doing Gru?
Gru didn't happen until the 80s. Well,
Oh, okay,
he did a original Gru story like in 77, but that's still post
okay,
Plop. But
right, okay.
and that ended up in Destroyer Duck,
Hmm.
which was the Steve Gerber suing
Yeah.
Marvel Comics about Howard the Duck magazine, you know.
Right.
And that's where Gru first appeared. It was just a silent gag. I don't remember the gag, but it was kind of like one of your one pagers,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, and but he was, I and I asked him about this. He was getting more involved with, they were doing a revival of Laugh-In on TV.
Mm.
And he was originally just supposed to be on the show to do like little animations and character designs, and then they threw him on there as one of the cast members. So, they only did like a half a dozen episodes, so it wasn't that big a deal. But that was where like Robin Williams got his start and stuff like that.
Right,
And
yeah.
Sergio just happened to be on it, and I watched it because he was on it. I go, "Wow, Sergio's on TV. That's really weird, but let's
Well,
watch it."
I mean, he's a dynamic looking guy. I mean,
Yeah.
back then, he was like, like really good looking. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Well, he even said he wasn't really trying to be on the show, but they had like little blackout gags where they're having like, the whole, execution
oh yeah.
thing, with the
I
21
no,
guns.
actually,
Yeah,
yeah, I
and
remember those things that he was doing.
and
Yeah,
they
I
needed
remember
somebody to be
those.
like a generalissimo, and he
Yeah,
said, "You look the part, you do it." Okay, suddenly he's on the show, you know.
yeah, yeah, right.
So, anyway, what was I going to say about that? But he didn't know Plop was kind of going away because he wasn't in those giant issues very much. I think issue 21 or 22, I forgot which one. One of those two.
Well, I don't.
His art where he doesn't have any surrounding story and there's just like little spot art. So, he didn't even make it in that issue. So,
Well, I don't know where he lived at the time. I don't know if he was living out in the West Coast or what,
I think he
but
was, yeah. I think he
because
was,
he wasn't in the office that much, he would come in occasionally, and that's how I meet, see him. But I was there all the time, so I knew that Plop was like getting near the end.
yeah.
Just from talking to the editors and all that to Joe and Paul. So I kind of knew that it was the handwriting was on the wall for it.
Okay.
But like I said, it was a fantastic run for me. Man, it's started my career really.
Right. So going back to Sergio for a second,
Yeah,
they threw him a bone, which I don't think he worked on at all. DC Superstars salute to Sergio, and they kind of did one last wraparound story with Cain, Abel,
right.
and Eve with
Yeah,
select stories, and then I asked him about the one story. Let me get the title here, and it was called Actually, it was in the last issue of Plop. It was The Fate Worse Than Death. I asked Sergio about that. And that's a story where it has William Gaines, and he's basically saying, "Get out of here. Go work on your funny books. We don't need you."
what
And
what
so that's the last issue in 24.
what was on the cover? I don't even know if I have that
That's one
one.
of your covers. That's the one
Oh,
with a lizard and the tongue goes out for the
oh
little
yeah, yeah, I
boy.
just had
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I asked Sergio about that. I'm just telling you this for a little matter of fact, and he said, "Oh, Gaines loved that story. In fact, I think Gaines had the original art on that one, because he says, 'Go away and do your funny books,' you know."
Look at that again. It's a yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
There's a Wally Woods in that too.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
So it was like
okay.
it was like a good send off, but they did give
Yeah,
Sergio one last shot as his own book, and he was
yeah,
very
right.
grateful for that.
Yeah,
But you continued on because House of Mystery and like House of Secrets continued on, and you still did gag stuff. But did you
yeah.
purposely do them for that at that point, or you had to stockpile and you just kept using your stuff for a little of both?
No, they were all new. I
Okay.
mean, I'd come in, and I think uh, Jack Harris was editing some of them, and then but the editors were like new editors were coming in and going, and but I would come in, yeah, I'd come in. I was still total freelancing then,
Hmm.
and I would come in and show them like a handful, 5, 6 pages, and they take two or three or whatever. Always it was always like fun to give them a gag and then have them laugh, see them laughing at it. I said, okay, there's a sale. So that's how that worked. Yeah,
Okay. And then when that kind of dried up, I know we went over this in the other interview, but I can't remember. What did you do directly after that? We're talking late 70s, early 80s. Was it Crazy Next or was it something else?
yeah. Actually, I was doing like crazy because I in the late '70s, '79, whatever. Joe and Sergio were urging me to go over to Mad and submit things to Mad.
Hmm.
and I sold him a handful of gags, and like I said, all the I was like Edwin. My rejects from Mad, I would take them somewhere else. He would take them to Cracked and and Crazy and all that. And actually, one day, I don't know if I mentioned this last time. He
I
actually
think you
had
did, but you could repeat it. That's fine.
he had a gag in Mad, right?
Yeah.
In the same month, it came out in Cracked magazine, the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
exact gag. And Mad was like so livid with him. So then we couldn't use our names anymore in other magazines. We had to. That's why I came up with the name Kovacs.
Oh, that's right. We did discuss that. Yeah.
Stuff like came up
Yeah.
and worked for Crazy. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, and I was doing that. I was selling a lot to Crazy, and then I got asked to be an editor at DC, and did that for like 3 4 years, and then wanted to just I'd gotten married at that point at the end of that run, and I got introduced. I wanted to actually. I don't know if I mentioned this. I had submitted with Gary Cohn and Dan Mission submitted a comic book idea, and DC was kept dragging their butt on it, and they wouldn't look at it or make a decision on it while I was the last 6 months I was there. So finally, I get my like a writing career going over Marvel, for
Hmm.
Star Comics,
Hmm.
and I'm like deep into that. And they say, "Oh, we want to do your comic book," and I was just like, I'd totally gone a different direction, and I just didn't want to go back to that, and have maybe ruin what I had started with Marvel. So I mean, not I didn't have anything against DC, but I just I was making money doing this at Marvel, so
Yeah.
that's what happened. That's how I kept going. Then you know, uh, Alf, Sonic, Spy versus Spy, Sabrina the Teenage Witch,
Right.
through this new century. So
Now, how long did you do Spy versus Spy all told?
about 3 years.
3 years? Okay.
Yeah,
And that was after Bob Clark stopped doing it? Is that
yeah,
who you replaced? Okay.
yeah. And then Cooper came in after that. I never met him.
Yeah.
I mean, I like his work. It was a kind of like it was a shock to see that what they wanted to turn Spy into, but he
Yeah.
did it a long time, so
Yeah.
yeah.
He actually in the brand new issue, the very latest issue of Mad number 41, he actually has a new Spy versus Spy. They're starting to put a little new material back in. So
I
and
know. I saw that. Actually,
and
I saw that post on Instagram. He
yeah.
mentioned that.
And Sergio had a new couple page story, the mad look at AI. So it's kind of an AI themed issue. So I guess they
Maybe
need
I'll maybe I'll get in touch with him. You want to see the classic Spy versus Spy?
right. Dueling Spy versus Spy.
Yeah,
That'd be
right.
funny.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
you draw half of it, Cooper does the other half, and it's
I mean, the guys who are running Mad now probably don't even know I'm around at this point.
probably.
So yeah,
Now, I don't know if I asked you this before, but I'll ask you again, even because I don't remember your
yeah,
answer. You did
sure.
there was like a Sunday comics or daily comic strip version that appeared in newspapers.
Yeah,
How did that come about? I mean, did somebody approach Gaines, or did you do it on your own, or how did that work?
I didn't have anything to do with it. I mean,
I thought you drew that one.
I did. I mean,
Oh, okay.
how it came about.
Oh, I
I
see.
mean,
Okay.
uh, I mean, they just got in touch with me, and I don't know if they pitched it to a syndicate or
Hmm.
they um or a syndicate asked them about it because it was like kind of like the newspaper syndicates really weren't like it wasn't their heyday even like around that time.
Right. Right.
And so they got Matt got in touch with me. He said, "You want to do this thing? They want to do the classic Spy. They didn't want the new version."
Hmm.
And if Matt did pitch it to them, maybe that's they were pitching the new version of Spy versus Spy. But for some reason, they Matt got back to me, and this is after like about 5 years of not doing any spy. I would do an occasional spy thing. Matt would get in touch with me
Yeah.
if an advertising client wanted like the original look of the spy. I would do
Hmm.
short jobs. But yeah, I was doing. I did it for like it didn't last long. I mean, it's like I thought if there was I admire Ed Wing's writing, but I don't think his heart was in it.
Yeah.
And there were really a lot of things that departed from the theme of the original Spy versus Spy. But anyway, that was fun doing that too. So
Hmm.
I mean, that was
Okay.
great. I mean, my whole all the work I've done is like
I think the reason why Cooper didn't do it is because he's explained how he does his version of Spy versus Spy,
yeah,
and it's very labor intensive even now. It's like so I don't even know how he does it, but I mean, I guess doing it uh 8 to 12 issues a year is easier than a daily. So
yeah.
doing that type of stuff.
Well,
So
it wasn't a daily. It was Sunday. It was one
it was
once a
Sunday
week.
only. Okay, but
Yeah.
still, it's probably easier to do a weekly strip the way you do it, just
Well,
pen
if
and
that
ink. So,
and the thing is, I mean, it has. I mean, you would have to work large and have it like shrunk down pretty much. Where the version I did was like all line work, so it was easier to
yeah.
to reduce
Hmm.
and read.
Yeah.
So
And I know a while later they started reprinting them in the super specials and stuff like that,
yeah,
which is good because I never saw it in the newspaper. My newspapers around here never carried it, so I
right.
don't even know who carried it actually. You know.
Well, like Mad never paid for reprints, but
Yeah, yeah.
it was like it was, and there were super specials and all that. I think we got some actually. I don't know if it was just the comic strip or there were pages reprinted also.
Yeah.
But thank goodness for Edwin, he insisted to Matt that we get a reprint fee, and they gave it to us because of Edwin.
On
He said,
those comic strips, yeah.
"Yeah, whatever they reprinted,
Oh,
yeah,
anything they reprinted,
yeah,
okay.
right." And I think they were so afraid of losing Edwin because he had a lot of other things going on too,
Right.
other design. He used to design um, like for casinos, like electric pinball
Hmm.
machines, all the graphics on those,
Hmm.
and apparently made a lot of money on those. But uh, so I think that Matt was just afraid of losing them,
Yeah.
losing them, and so they agreed to give us a reprint fee, which was nice.
Hmm. Um, I know about the infamous Mad trips. You had to have a certain amount of pages. Did you ever go on any of the Mad trips or no?
They had stopped those by the time I was doing it. They
Oh,
weren't
okay.
doing those anymore.
Okay.
I think just
Okay.
because it cost too much. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Like used to go all over the world,
Right.
and when Mad was like the hottest thing around.
Right.
So yeah, but they did have they had a nice Christmas party every year.
Okay.
Of course, I was like in Pennsylvania then. It was hard for me to get in for like an evening. So
Hmm. Did you
especially
ever
with
go?
that.
Did you ever go to any of them?
I did a
Oh,
few times. Yeah, I did a
okay.
couple times. It was
Cool.
pretty cool. It's the
Yeah.
only time I met Mort Drucker.
Hmm.
That was nice, just to shake his hand, say hello. How much I liked his work, and but I never met a lot of the other Mad people. Um, I I a couple of years ago, I saw Dick DeBartolo. He was on Facebook, and it was either Facebook or Instagram,
Hmm.
and I sent him a friend request, and he got back to me, and he did it, and I wrote him a nice we were back and forth a little bit and
Hmm. Hmm.
messaging, and I said one of my favorite um, stories that I remember when I was a kid. It was like the TV show Gentle Ben was on,
Oh, yeah.
and he wrote this satire called Genteel Ben,
Right.
and that Don Martin drew, and it
Yeah.
was like just this sticks in my mind, that whole thing. It was so
Well, yeah.
funny.
I mean, it's like I don't think Don Martin had ever done a parody before, and suddenly he's doing one, and it's like I think he did a couple years later. Like I think he did Excalibur, the movie, and a
He
Robin Hood thing or
did a
something. But
Star
yeah,
Wars too. Yeah,
yeah. But at the time, he had never done
yeah,
something that was a parody. It was always
right.
his
Yeah.
own
Oh yeah,
gag.
right.
So it was kind of a shocker. It's like, wow, they got him. But then they started giving other people a chance doing parodies. I think Paul Coker did one once, and
Oh yeah,
you know, and I guess to free up Drucker's time, so he wasn't doing everything. But
yeah, right.
but anyway. Um, so I guess that's all I had to say this time,
Okay.
but uh are you I think we talked about last time you were like working on like some sort of graphic novel or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's
Is that
still
still in progress?
yeah, it's
Okay.
still in progress. Yep. It's
Okay.
like
All right.
it kind of hit like a slow spot, but it's still in progress.
Okay. All right.
Not
So
it's
anyway.
80% finished. Let's put
All
it
right.
that way.
Well,
The
hopefully
artwork.
hopefully you'll get
Yeah.
that done
Yeah.
at your at your pace, but maybe sometime this year
I
we'll
need,
see it. Yeah.
well, you can chastise me and tell me to get it done.
Get it done.
Thank you. That's what
It's
my
a new
sister.
year, new
That's what my
years.
sister keeps yelling at me. She says, "Get it done, get it done." Anything I do.
Oh. Is there
So,
any other projects that you're considering, or would you entertain trying to work at Mad again or anything like that if the opportunity happened, or no?
I mean, I guess I would. I mean, I didn't think about it one way or the other because I don't know how available that is. So,
Yeah, I don't either. It
yeah.
just suddenly the last couple issues, they started putting a little more new material, which I think is encouraging because they were reprints for like the last 5 years, just
I mean,
complete.
I didn't even know they were like publishing like new stuff. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I
Well,
thought it was all I thought it was all online.
yeah. No, they do put out an issue. The only way you can get them is subscription, which I do, or a comic book store.
Right. Okay.
But it's not on the regular newsstands. Although they do get others like reprint specials on the regular newsstands, so at
Mhm.
least the name's out there. But it's
Right.
kind of frustrating as a longtime Mad fan to have it always be reprints. So it's
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
at least in the old days on reprints, you'd bonus Zeppelin or bonus comic book or something, something
Yeah.
to
Right.
get you to buy it. But it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh well. Um, so anyway, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And if we do another book, maybe we do another interview. No, I can always interview you again if there's
Yeah. That's
anything
fine.
we need. We'll do a
Yeah.
Star
Sure.
Comics book or something.
Yeah. No. I'll no. I'll just get in touch, and if I have anything I want to talk to you about, I'll get in touch with you.
Sounds good.
And
Well, we could do a show about your graphic novel when it's finally done. So, you
okay,
know,
sounds good.
get a free
Okay.
plug, and tell you.
Hopefully the end of this year. I mean, it'll be
All
done.
right,
So,
sounds good. We'll meet
okay,
again.
Mark, you're really nice finally seeing you and talking to you.
Yes.
And
Well,
that's
and
it.
I have no
Well,
idea when my plot books, when Slade and I are working on it. We knew that we had to get Sergio. I did get him.
right.
Monty Wolverton was wonderful, and I think you said what's his name, Michelini? Uh,
David Michelini, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't interview him, but Mark Slade did interview him.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and we got Lee Mars. So we're trying to get
Hmm.
as many people as we can,
Right.
and to discuss Plop, and
Well,
hopefully DC will reprint it someday in some sort of anthology edition. So, but we'll see.
yeah, yeah. Well, really great talking to you, Mark. And
Oh,
till we meet again.
all right. Well, thank you, Dave Man. I'm saying it wrong again. Thank you, Dave Manak. It's frustrating. I've said it the wrong way for 40 years, and it's like now
All
it's
right, it's
Manak.
okay.
Yeah. Um,
Now you know.
so we'll do it again. Take two. Um, Thank you, Dave Manak, for being my special guest again on the Fun Ideas podcast. And this is your host, Mark Arnold. I got that name right. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, Mark.